Good afternoon and welcome to our new BCP Council live question and answer sessions. My name is Drew Mellor and I'm the leader of BCP Council. So really great to be with you today, and it's great to be back doing these sessions as well. It's been a little while. We'd had some really helpful and good feedback around our deep dive sessions, how useful they were when we get a panel of people together and answer some of your questions. But we didn't want to do too many of those and lose effectively that every 2 weeks challenge and opportunity to answer questions directly to me either. So what we've done now, we've taken that feedback and we've now brought together those sessions. So we're actually having a longer session so we can do both of those things effectively. We really believe that we want to give you the opportunity to question us as a council and hold us to account, and we don't want to lose that part of the Q&A. So these sessions will be longer, more focused, more in depth than the previous versions, and as well as hearing from me, you'll also hear from key people behind the decisions that affect our lives here. The first part of the New Look Q&As will be that deep dive on a different theme, and today our theme is cleaner, greener, safer work. So thank you to everybody who's already sent in your questions on that topic, and the team who lead on cleaner, greener, safer and I will try to answer all the questions you've sent us. Then after that session, so which is going to be about half of this hour, we're going to revert to the normal live questions sent in by those of you joining online. So hopefully we get the best of both worlds. Really keen to have anybody's feedback, both in terms of how these new sessions are working, but also other key topics you want us to deep dive in. So, just remember, these are your sessions. So if you have any suggestions at all or feedback, please let us know and message us via our social media channels. So, okay, so what we're going to do today, I'm now going to spend a little bit of time on cleaner, greener, safer. I thought I'll just kick off in terms of what we actually believe that to be. What is that? And it's our plan to make you feel truly proud of living, working and playing in our fantastic Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole region. So in practice, this means levelling up our services and investing in what matters most to residents. And significant feedback is often about residents want the place to be cleaner, greener and safer. And what I've said since I've been leader of a council, it's not about us saying we're doing that, it's about us, you guys, everybody feeling those things as well. So it's about rebuilding a clean, green and safe environment across BCP area, post the pandemic. We're going to run into a video now, an introductory video on clean and green and safer, which the team are just about to play. So please have a look at that, and then what I'll do is I'll introduce the rest of the panel today. So if the team could roll the cleaner, greener, safer video, that'd be great. Great, thank you very much for that, and I hope some of the stats and pictures in there were interesting to see. This has been a priority area for us, and we're trying to, we've got a long way to go, but we're trying to invest a significant amount of money in delivering for that. So, okay, let me introduce our team that are going to be answering questions today. So perhaps we could bring everybody up online. Firstly, we've got, I'll introduce everybody, and then I'm sure as and when we're coming in to answer questions, people can introduce themselves again. So first of all, we're joined by Councillor Nicola Green, who's our portfolio holder for delivery here. We've got Kelly Ansell, who's our Director of Communities, Martin Whitchurch, who's our project leader in environmental services, and Simon Legg, our highways delivery manager. So thanks everybody for spending the time today. And we've now got a list of questions that we're going to answer in here. So, okay, let's go first of all to the questions. And just as a reminder, we'll be doing this for about half an hour. And then we'll be looking forward to getting your questions in a normal way you would have done historically. So please put that put those questions in, and I'll be answering those at the end of this session. So great. Let's go to the first question, which I believe is from Anne Millward, and we're going to get that up online. And yeah, so Anne said we had a wander along sandbanks along the harbour wall side and was disappointed to see that most of the benches were broken with slats missing. When will they get renovated? So you've seen some of the investment we've done in street furniture in the video there, so there is investment going in. Perhaps I'll come to is that Nicola? Probably be one for you to start with.
Yes, it is, Drew. Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. And thanks, Anne, for raising that. With the best will in the world, there is no substitute for eyes and ears on the ground. So those really local things are really helpful to hear. As you'd expect, we've got a rolling programme of repainting and repairs of our public benches, and I'm sorry that we haven't got to those that you've seen yet, but we will do our best to move these forward because it's really high profile and a really high profile location. Lots of people go there, lots of footwork, so we'll look into it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, and I'm hoping people are starting to see some of the investment that is going in. Okay, then, so we've got a question now from Elizabeth Cowley. So thanks for sending these in. Elizabeth is saying, all the streets in Charminster need weeding and cleaning. Middle of Capstone Road particularly bad. It seems Charminster's main street only being kept on top of. Parker Road in Winton behind the Waitrose is in a bad way. All the curbs need replacing. Simon, perhaps you could come in and introduce yourself and answer this question. Simon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for raising this. My name's Simon Legg. Weeds is a particular problem, or has been a particular problem across the three towns. We've focused this year on starting weed control programs in the three main town centres and are rolling that out right across BCP. The first treatment is around about 80% complete, and the second treatment will start again in August. With regards to the curbs in the road, our highway inspectors do visit and carry out safety inspections on a regular basis. If there is a particular concern in that road, if we could get those recorded on and report it, that would be superb, and we get those checked out. Thank you.
Yeah, and for your reference to, thanks Simon, the reference to report it there, if perhaps I think that would be something useful, we could, that's our report it function as a council. So yeah, great, thanks for that. So bcpcouncil.gov.uk/report it. So any issues, please report it through that. As we're becoming a more digital authority, there are going to be easy ways of reporting in and coming in the next year, but that is a really positive way for now. Yeah, so we've done a lot of work in terms of weeding, and we put a significant amount more people in as well. So we're seeing that we're having some issues about recruitment in some of those teams. I think that's a sort of a national problem. So if anybody is aware of people who would be interested in any of the vacancies we've got in our in environmental teams, be really keen to hear. And my email address for one will be coming up a number of times today. Yeah, thank you very much for that. So so then let's go to, I think we're going to go now to Dan Shave. Great. So there's a wooden play equipment on Haskell's Wreck that is dangerous. It's been reported. It was taped off. The grass allowed to grow up around it, and it was left. It's been vandalised and is a hazard. It's time it was removed. We wasted money on it a few years back, and it was never maintained. It's dangerous and needs sorting out. Yeah. So I mean, we've got it. I'll start there, Dan, and then I'll bring probably Martin in on that question. We've got a real commitment across children's play areas in general and our recreation spaces, and we're hoping to bring forward some work on that generally across the conurbation now. Certainly, as you know, I've young 2 and 4 year olds, and appreciate how important those areas are. So probably Martin, is this perhaps that's one for you? And Martin, I do apologise, I've read out your historic title. Martin is our strategic lead for green space and conservation. So over to Martin. Hi.
No problem. Thank you, Drew. Yeah, thank you for the question. It's nice to get some of our local play spaces recognised as well as our bigger spaces. So, yeah, the wooden play equipment that's referred to here isn't dangerous. It's part of kind of a play landscape approach to play. So it's not all equipment within a fenced play space. So this went in about 7 years ago, and timber naturally degrades and sort of deteriorates in the ground. But that in itself is a play opportunity for young people or people of all ages. And as part of that wider sort of play landscape design. So it's about exploring and finding those natural materials. We inspect the play equipment and the natural play spaces regularly. We don't consider any to be dangerous, and in time, as and when, if they do need removing, then obviously we will do that work. So at this stage, we're happy that it's a safe play space, and we encourage all our users to explore all aspects of the landscape as they play in sort of naturally, and as well as in our fixed play areas. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much there. Really helpful. So let's go to a question now we've got from Martin Smalley. Let's get that question up. It's relating to urban planting and trees. I'll just let me read it out. So yeah, Martin Smalley. This relates to green issues. Has BCP Council now got in place a programme of tree replacement? We noted that prior to BCP being formed, no tree planting took place in the previous 2 years, as there wasn't a budget for it. Tree planting is so important for decarbonisation. Yeah, Martin, completely agree with that. Hopefully, you're starting to see some of the investment and budget we're putting in. Nicola, you'll probably have more detail on that, wouldn't you? So, Nicola, perhaps you could answer that. Thank you.
Yeah, just in not a great deal of detail, but Martin, thank you so much for the question. And actually, Drew's going to be answering a question in a little while more generally about the climate emergency. And obviously, tree planting is a really, really important part of it, but it is just one aspect. And of course, it sits alongside meadow management, natural regeneration, and all the rest of it. So we are developing this tree strategy, and what that will help us do is identify places for planting and making sure that we plant the right tree in the right place. That's as important as selecting the tree, and that will form that lovely tree canopy, which will help to benefit future generations. Just to finish with a little fact you may have picked up on the video, is that in the year 2021 we planted 10,000 trees. So we're on the journey. We've got our spades out, and watch for the tree strategy. Yeah,
great. And there's no genuine budget in there to how we can enhance our tree planting, which is great and great to see. Okay, so let's go to a question from Sally Biggs. Why, if you go into Bournemouth town centre, is everything clean, lampposts painted, roads and pavements swept, etc., but Boscombe roads and pavements are dirty and never seem to be clean? Well, Sally, first of all, thank you for noticing the improvements in Bournemouth town centre. That's really, it's been a real area that we've tried to invest in, because we had some negative feedback, and we don't feel we've quite got there yet. We feel we're on a journey around Bournemouth and our other town centres. But I appreciate you noticing that's been positive. We have ambitious plans to renew Boscombe and the public realm there, and we've just secured over a year ago £22 million of government funding for regeneration in Boscombe as part of the Towns Fund project. So there's a huge amount of work coming to Boscombe, which is great. We had there was a first traders meeting last night in Boscombe. We had the Globe, in Boscombe over the weekend. So it really feels like there's an undercurrent of really positive things happening in Boscombe, which we're delighted about. What we've done in terms of our cleaner, greener, safer work, and this is probably why you've noticed it more in the town centres, Paul, Bournemouth and Christchurch town centres, is we wanted to start a pilot effectively. So we've gone into town centres first to do exactly what you're talking about, lamppost painted. We've done a street audit effectively, where we've looked at all the things that are there and what needs to be replaced, either taken away or painted, etc. So it's been really quite successful. It's been a significant amount of extra work for our colleagues to actually our colleagues to do that. We're now looking at how we can roll that out across the conurbation. So we've got something that works. We can prove it works. We put budget into it. And we will keep doing that in our wider areas. So whether that's Boscombe. We've heard about Charminster earlier. Now we need to move it further out. So we are really hoping that this work will be a real success. I do need to thank the BIDs, the business improvement districts, who've really helped us to sit alongside us and be our sort of eyes and ears, but also challenge us in terms of what we've needed to do in our town centres. And a lot of that good work is moving forward because of their involvement. But we put literally millions of pounds into investing in those areas. We're going to keep going, and now we need to push it out further. So Sally, thank you very much for your question. We do note it. More work is coming, both long-term regeneration in Boscombe through the Towns Fund, but also as we roll out our cleaner, greener, safer work into outside of our core town centres. Okay, so let's go to a question. Okay, we've got an anonymous one. Why has grass cutting maintenance not been carried out in the East Boscombe Cemetery, and will regular grass cutting now commence? So probably quite a detailed question about a specific area. So rather than me talk more generally about what we're doing with grass cutting and the extra investment going into that, Martin, probably one for you. Just more the detail on that, Martin.
Yeah, thanks. I think it is a detailed answer as well. So the bereavement care team obviously take a great deal of pride in delivering a range of services to grieving families at their greatest time of need. The management provision of graves, interment of ashes, and the maintenance of our 9 cemeteries is all delivered internally by designated bereavement grounds maintenance teams. At present, those teams continue to experience a really high demand for interment of ashes, which was severely restricted during the pandemic. As a result, we've had to make some difficult decisions on where to focus resources across the entire sort of bereavement estate of those 9 cemeteries. And obviously, the primary focus on those has been about facilitating active burials, interment of ashes, along with maintaining the areas that are frequently visited at those sites. But that's kind of the general answer, I suppose. So it's about sort of managing the resource that we have to deliver that service. Boscombe East Cemetery in particular is currently about 50% cut. So that's the main entrances, the sides to the main roads and areas in which recent burials and intended burials, they've all been recently cut. So work on site remains ongoing to try and catch up and reach all those other areas. But hopefully people will understand that prioritization of our resources. And I'm sure we'll be catching up with those other spaces soon. Great,
thanks, Martin. Thank you very much for that question. Okay, so let's go to next question now. Question about violent crime. From Harry Pay, there are more violent crimes in the area by the day. So I'll bring Kelly Ansell in just in a second on this, who's our director in charge of community. We've done a lot of work. It's been really interesting working with he's been in place just over a year now, Police and Crime Commissioner David Sidwick. David stood on a platform around tackling antisocial behaviour. So then when we came in as an administration just before that and made cleaner, greener and safer a real priority area for us, we were actually seeing some real benefit from that, really joined up working with the police. We had a brilliant operation last summer with the in terms of our summer response as well. So from our perspective, we feel we're really working exceptionally well with the police now, and thank David Sidwick for his relentless focus on antisocial behaviour. And we just have to stand alongside him on it. In terms of Kelly, perhaps I could bring you in to answer that more directly. Cheers.
Thanks, Drew. Yeah, I mean, obviously, violent crime is an issue that is incredibly it's terrible impact when it happens in terms of the individuals involved, and of course, we understand that that's a huge concern for our communities. Obviously, in terms of dealing with crime, police would take the lead in terms of that. But as a local authority, we're also incredibly active and working to support the work of the police. One of my key areas of responsibility is community safety, and we have a community safety team who are involved in considering what's happening out there in terms of all sorts of different crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour, monitoring levels of violent crime, and really looking to work with our our multi-agency partners to understand the root causes and what's beneath that, so that we can take an approach of early intervention and prevention of those issues. So we work with the Community Safety Partnership, which is a partnership of statutory agencies. The council lead that and are there from a multidisciplinary sort of set of departments are there. So you'll have housing, you'll have my teams around communities, you'll also have drug and alcohol, mental health, children's and education, really kind of multifaceted kind of approach to really looking at what the issues look like, as well as other statutory partners, health, probation, police, fire. They're all there to consider how we can work together to resolve these issues. So we take an evidence-led approach, but we're really looking as a community safety partnership to enhance the work that we do around getting out there and talking to our communities about these really wicked and complex issues that we see. Yeah. So that's a really important part of the focus, and tackling violent crime in all its forms is a priority for the CSP. But I would also just want to add, in terms of the work, building on what Drew's already said, we have a 14-strong CSAS team. I've had investment in that over the last couple of years, and there's additional investment of £600,000 worth of new investment going into recruiting new CSAS officers and also providing security patrols out in our town centres, particularly around our seasonal response and our response to the really busy periods that we see throughout the summer. So, really making sure that we're promoting public safety and connecting everybody together to deal with that. The only other thing that I'd also just want to mention is CCTV. We know that CCTV not only makes people feel safer when they're out there in our town centres, but also prevention and detection of crime. CCTV is absolutely critical to that. So there's been a significant amount of investment, not just in additional CCTV across BCP as part of the Cleaner, Greener, Safer programme. There's also been additional investment in enhanced monitoring. So we now have 24/7 monitoring across the whole of BCP, whereas we didn't have that previously. And also, it's often understated, but the quality of the images that we have through CCTV really help us to detect crime and to prevent and to be able to, it's our kind of, the eye in the sky in terms of real time and what's happening. So there's been a significant amount of investment to enhance our imaging and really help us from an operational perspective.
Great, thanks, Kelly. There's a huge amount of work going on there. If I just explain effectively, by CSAS officers, we mean effectively officers employed by us as a council, but they have some policing powers given to them. So it's a way that we can really be quite directional in terms of that resource. So you'll see them walking around in uniform with community safety, officer across their uniform. We've, as Kelly says, we've got some in. We're getting loads more. We think it really works, and people really report they like seeing that uniform presence on the street. So Kelly's doing some great work nationally, leading in that area, and we're really proud of what we're able to do. So. Okay, but Harry, thank you for your question, and there's always more to do. Right, come on, let's go to Julian Dedman now. So we've got a question about road sweeping. So there's a lack of road sweeping, drain clearing, and it's so detrimental to highway infrastructure that it is counterproductive. Recently, the roadway in Winston Avenue it literally exploded after heavy rain because of the roadside drain was blocked. The high cost of repairs must impact other budgets. When will a council attend to this widespread problem and divert their efforts away from the seafront and Poole Park? Again, thank you for noticing what we are doing in terms of trying to activate and provide many more facilities down on the seafront and in Poole Park. Anybody, particularly Poole Park, and who's not been there recently, it's fantastic. But Julian's point is around roadside sweeping and the knock on of that. So probably one for Simon to come in on. Simon, one for you.
Yeah, thank you very much for raising this one. Really important one, and to give you some idea of the scale, there are around 60,000 road drains across BCP, and there is an active programme involving 4 galley tankers trying to keep those clear and keep on top of those. The particular incident that happened in Winston Avenue was it wasn't directly related to the road gullies. The actual surface water main blocked, and we assisted our colleagues at Wessex Water with investigation and repair to that one. We're obviously committed to street cleaning programs and maximising the use of the resource that we do have, developing gully emptying schedules and trying to adjust those to reflect the seasonality of the service. So things like leaf fall, pine needles, and then those types of things which impact on the success or failure of the surface water system. If I may as well just pick up on a comment that was made earlier around recruitment. It is an area we do struggle to recruit to, so if there are people listening that are interested in that sort of work, I'd be delighted to hear from them. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got vacancies in a number of parts of the council. So if anybody feels they'd like to contribute, that would be great. Okay, and just one point I'd raise on roadside sweeping as well. I mean, in particular, I know we've had some really great feedback from Christchurch. Christchurch had a significantly less investment, had less road sweeping historically. One of the first things we did was level that up. So now that's at the same level across Bournemouth, Christchurch, and Poole. But Julian, thank you for your question. We can and should try and now raise that bar again and go further. Okay, got a question from Chris Evans then. Why are the local parks grass not cut anymore? Poole is a disgrace, overgrown jungle, stopping children and adults alike enjoying outdoor space. I don't agree with with your analysis of of where we are on that, Chris. I think there's some elements we're letting grow for biodiversity in terms of parks. And I mentioned Poole Park earlier on. I think some of our parks look absolutely exceptional. But more specifically, Martin, it's probably one for you and your team. Is there sort of a comment you would like to make back to Chris?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think it interests a lot of people as well. So I think there's probably two main points here. One is that we are on a routine cut approximately every 6 to 7 weeks across our open spaces. There is a link we can share for the grass cutting rounds that you can find out when it's due, and we're sort of on track on that. And also there is a seasonality to that as well in terms of how quickly the grass is growing and kind of active times. The other part of the question is we are making a concerted effort in some spaces to leave areas longer as grass meadows. This helps very much with our ecological emergency as well as the carbon footprint of the council. If we're having to cut it less, we're not using mowers and travelling as much. But in terms of wildlife, having the longer grass, especially around trees and as kind of connectivity across our sites linking to our nature reserves, is absolutely vital in trying to help our wildlife recover, especially our pollinators and kind of the insects and invertebrates. So it's a dual message, but in the main, we should be on a 6 to 7 week grass cutting round that should see our open spaces sort of up together. And even if we have got meadows, we cut paths through them, we cut the edges, and we keep things kind of up together. So hopefully that kind of approach makes sense and kind of hopefully covers that off. Yeah,
thank you, Martin. It was really helpful actually. We had a wide-ranging pilot, didn't we, last summer, where we were trying to allow more areas to grow, and you've been really well received in some areas and less so in others. So the feedback we've had from people has been really important as we've adapted that. We adapted it a little bit back end of last year, but we've done it differently this year as well because of that feedback. So please keep your feedback coming in. And thank you very much for your question, Chris. Okay, so got a question from David Warhurst around street lighting and foliage, how often things are cut back, etc. So you can be in a well lit, particularly talking about gravel hill, and then another bit less well lit. Simon, be one for you probably, Simon.
Yeah, thank you very much for flagging this on with us. The trees, obviously, particularly this time of year after a growing season, are an increasing problem. And I'd also expand that not just beyond the lamp columns, but some of the other street furniture and assets that we have. Our main roads are on a 5-year inspection cycle, undertaken by an arboriculture officer, and when they do that, they will arrange deadwooding, crown lifting, and removal of foliage around important pieces of infrastructure, such as street lighting. Gravel Hill is due an inspection this coming autumn. So hopefully the issues that are being raised here today will get picked up. As an interim, in any case, our highway inspectors are always looking for immediate tree defects. So if they spot something which is of concern or of danger, they will raise that with our arboricultural team and hopefully arrange the necessary work. But yeah, to give some reassurance, Gravel Hill in particular will be looked at this coming autumn.
Great, thank you very much, Simon. Really helpful. So let's go to a question now from Fanny Glennon. The council declared a climate emergency 3 years ago, but you haven't seen action. Sea level rises will have critical impact here, and we'll have no beaches by 2040, which will be no tourism. When can we start to see some action? Biodiversity crisis, massive decline in insects, mow roadside verges, etc., and trim hedges during bird nesting season. Thank you. Really interesting and important question. Thank you very much for it. So I think we've heard a little bit about what we're doing in terms of mowing roadside verges. We're doing some of it in more prominent areas. We're actually letting it grow where we can do, and that is about biodiversity and the biodiversity improvements there. So in terms of the climate emergency more generally, we're actually doing a huge amount, and perhaps I'll just run through some of the things now. I mean, as an administration, the previous administration cut all of the money for climate emergency. We put it back in. We then doubled it, and now we've made it permanent. So the council's actually got double amount of budget for climate action. And we've then, in our last budget in February, we created a £20 million Green Futures Fund. So that is £20 million of cash we have to invest in tackling the climate agenda head on. And we're spearheading plans to reach the council's goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. That Green Futures Fund, £20 million of that is that action. It's not about hot air. It's not about talk. It's about doing things. So we're effectively through that leading the country in terms of that level of commitment to it. So I'm really proud that we all signed up to the climate and ecological emergency, and what we've done as an administration is put money behind that and not just talk. So lots of initiatives underway to reduce our carbon footprint, including energy saving projects in our public buildings. We've secured some SALEX, which is government funding to the public sector to improve energy efficiency. We've got an active fleet replacement plan to green our fleet, and by that it means our trucks effectively, and our refuse trucks and other fleet. We've huge investment in active travel investment. We're the first, I believe, we're the first to come forward with biodiversity net gain policy being developed. So again, leading the country in terms of hardwiring biodiversity into our planning system. Massive investment in green spaces. We've got 9 recovery projects at locations in partnership with the Parks Foundation, and we've got a development of a green infrastructure strategy, which is coming. I know is coming forward to cabinet in September. One thing that's been brilliant this week, actually, a little bit about the active travel. So we've got we've had our millionth Beryl and scooter ride this week. So total distance travelled on Beryls across the conurbation is almost 4 million kilometres, and we surveyed, I think, something like 30,000 users over the last year, and a quarter of the journeys were on a Beryl. Would have been done by some, motorised vehicle, car, effectively. So just in Beryl alone, we've saved 138 tonnes of carbon dioxide, and I'm told that's equivalent to boiling the kettle 9.2 million times. So we're at the beginning, but we've invested hugely. We're investing, as far as I'm aware, at more than any other council in the country, and we're really, we're seeing some of the impacts of it. We're nowhere near far enough on it, but we are committed to it. We're politically committed to it. We're financially committed to it, and we're doing. We've recruited a new lead in our team with that extra double budget. We recruited somebody from New Zealand to come in and lead that team for us, who's got a fantastic track record. So sorry, I've gone a bit on my soapbox with that one, but there's a huge amount we are doing. We're really keen to hear other things we should be doing or can be doing. So please send ideas in to us. But maybe we need to communicate better, and perhaps one of these sessions on climate would be useful. But really, thank you ever so much for your question. We're getting towards the end of this part of the session now, so apologies, I probably answered some of the questions in too much detail. We'll go to one more question here, and any questions we haven't answered, we'll come back. we come back directly to because I really do want to create some space to do the non-clean and green safer, more generic leader Q&A. So perhaps I could go to Nicola, Councillor Green. Clean up Bournemouth Square and town doesn't look good for tourists or people who live here and also the pier, which is interesting because we've just been told that Bournemouth's looking great and the seafront's looking great. So we're getting some things right, but not all of them. Nicola, perhaps you could shed some light.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I think we did all recognise that Bournemouth Town Centre needed a bit of TLC as we came out of COVID. It was common across the country, but certainly we recognised it here in all our three main town centres, and that kind of really drove our thinking on the Cleaner, Greener, Safer pilot. So we put some money and we've achieved some deep cleans, and that's been particularly around footways, subways. We've supplemented it, the team with 2 additional full-time cleansing staff. We've put in 35 new public litter bins. These things matter. We've been smartening up the road network, the railings, the bollards, the lampposts, as was noted in that previous question. So much activity, it is beginning to make an impact, but we all acknowledge that there was quite a lot to do. As with the other town centre pilots, we work really, really closely with the business improvement districts, and those are the local business networks, so they're telling us what their particular needs and priorities are. And working so closely with them, we're able to bring about that sustained improvement that the residents, the businesses and the visitors alike are looking for. We do know, and I think we have to acknowledge, that begging and street-based antisocial behaviour are a real concern for all, and they do impact on people's perceptions of how safe they feel in the town centres. So we work really, really closely with those experts at St Mungo's to address the root causes, some of those very complex root causes for the individuals concerned. At the same time, we're taking a really robust approach to enforcement to ensure that everybody is safe to enjoy our town centres. And then just, lastly, picking up on that aspect of local businesses, we're working really, really closely with them through the economic development function to make sure that we promote that really thriving economy on which everything is based. We eagerly await the arrival of a chain like the Ivy, bang in the square. I mean, what a sight. And that will really support the vibrancy that we all want to see in our town centres.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you ever so much, Nicola. Right, we really do need to close that section off now. So can I just please thank Kelly, Martin, Simon and Nicola for their support today. Any of the questions that have been asked that we haven't got to live, we'll get back to you. We'll get back to you on with an answer. But we're going to move now. I've just actually had a look, and we've got a load of questions coming in on the mainstream. So thanks everybody for your time today. That's great. And now we go to the section that is our more usual section around where I'll answer some of your questions. So we've got a lot in there, and we've got half an hour just under to do that. So if we don't get to all of these questions again, we'll come back to you directly on them. So okay, so I've got Chapman Law. Question about electronic vehicles and park and ride effectively. So 1244, that question was put in. So yeah, I recently visited Oxford. They have an amazing park and ride. I won't read the whole question because we're bringing it up on screen, and I'll try and answer it. Couple of things I read. So we put back in a park and ride system because we, as part of our seafront response, so and that's working well in Kings Park. I do see your point around how you can make that more of a hub, with electronic vehicle charging points, and as a real positive. What we wanted to do was put something in quickly, so we had it there, test how well it was, how it worked, how well used it was, and then we can work out a longer term plan about whether we want to do that permanently. If we did it permanently, how we would support that with other facilities. We're particularly keen in not just park and ride, but in terms of building a transport hub. If you look at Poole Town Centre and what some of the things we're trying to look at and potentially acquire there, there's a real opportunity to create, a car parking space, train station, bus station, effectively, where we can then wrap around all of that. And I know those plans that we're looking at do absolutely overlay electronic vehicle charging points and that. We've got a Poole Town Centre plan coming through soon. So it's not just about the Bournemouth, it's also about Poole as well in that. In terms of electronic charging points, we've got a large project going at the moment where we're working out how we can deploy at pace and scale. There are issues around the lamppost charging and effectively where the right place of that is. But we are coming forward with an EV charging plan shortly, and Councillor Mike Green, I believe, is leading on it. So watch this space. I agree with you. We're on it, and we will look to do more of that going forward. Aid. Okay. I'm not actually going to answer some of the questions that have been answered on cleaner, greener, safer, because I think we've spent a chunk of time on that, but we will get back to you offline. Okay, fine. Okay, so Lee Atkins, 1248. When are you going to stop these idiotic cycle lanes and actually listen to residents and not go against them? Lee, thanks for the question. Got a slightly different take on it. What we're trying to do with the cycle lanes, so Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole is, I think, the third or fourth most congested part of the country. So we've got a real problem, and it's not going away. It's not going away anywhere. What we need to do is to make sure that people who want to drive and need to drive have the ability to do so. So it's trying to support motorists to be able to travel and use our road system. So what we actually saw with the Beryl situation, so more people can, if you use some of their trips for walking and cycling, that takes cars off the road, which means we can the rest of us drivers can use the roads more often and less congested. So we know they work. In terms of listening, this is exactly what we have done. So we had a previous administration that came in a little bit more. We felt it was we know best approach that they were giving. We've stopped that. We've asked local ward councillors what they feel to really feed in on our active travel schemes, and wherever ward councillors agree they shouldn't happen, we stop them. So really listening to local residents and local voices. There was one instance in one ward where we listened to the ward councillors, and then there was such significant feedback from residents that they think that ward council had got it wrong, that we've interjected, and we've actually taken some of these schemes out and adapted some of these schemes. So we're definitely listening. That's a proven fact. We're trying to put cycle lanes in to support people. Your travel, your choice. And the ones we've got in, being successful, we keep wanting to learn and listen. So please do feedback, where it's working well and where it isn't working well. But Lee, we need to find ways of getting people who want to walk and cycle, off the road. So the people who need to use the cars and want to use cars, I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, as I mentioned. It's very, very difficult for me to cycle everywhere. So let's make sure that people who can cycle, when I can cycle, when I'm going on my own, then my cars comes off the road, so that people who need to use the roads can do. So Lee, get your question. Thank you, and I promise you we are listening to the feedback, both ward councillor and local residents as well. Okay. Okay, so fine. Faye William Vargas, 1248. When are you going to put more disabled parking in Poole? Okay, so we've got we're really we're trying to invest in our car parks effectively. So and Poole's been a prime example of that. So one of the things we're trying to invest in is actually the look and feel of them. Effectively, some of these spaces and that both includes the multi-storey car parks, but also we're looking at a project which Future Places are leading on in Poole. I think it's Chapel Lane, effectively, where we're going to revamp both the aesthetic but also the usability of some of our car parks. So we are looking at doing more of this. Your question is more specifically about disabled parking. So we I'll take that away and actually ask the team whether we've what feedback we're getting about the amount of disabled parking we've got. We're certainly not taking any away. We've actually got more parking spaces across the conurbation than historically, because where we've been replacing building on some surface car parks, we've often replaced with some more multi-storey spaces. So we're not we're trying to put more parking spaces in whilst being aware of how the car networks are changing. Okay. Oh, now I'm delighted to see Lee Atkins has said your question will not get answered, and I've just answered it. So Lee, I hope you're delighted that we've answered that. Thank you very much. Let me see what we're going to do. Okay, we've got a question which I'm not going to get read out because it's by somebody who've already been answered, but about the air show. If you want to reduce pollution, stop the air show. Well, don't agree. You know, we think the air show is so well loved and by everybody, and it's a massive positive for our tourism. And how happy people were when it came back last year. So we've got the air show coming. We're going to support that again. What we are doing, as I said before, we're putting £20 million into cleaner, greener, safer, and we've doubled our revenue budget as well. So we think you should do both. It shouldn't be a choice between the environment and the environment and leisure and tourism. We should be able to do both, and that's what we are doing. And I know that the air show, the emissions from the air show are offset effectively, of all the plane flights, etc. So that's positively done. Okay, yeah, got some questions again about town centres, but I hope we've answered those. We've really had a focus on our Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole town centres. We now need to spread it out wider, but there's more work to do in terms of town centres as well. Okay, yeah, I've got a question from Sue Herridge, 1251. Come and have a look at Summerford. I've messaged you about denying kids the green space outside the homes to play on. I think that's in relation to the green space, the cutting strategy, the biodiversity strategy, where we've let some grass grow. We've said, we listen to residents in some areas, and we've cut that back. So where we think it is play space, which we're bringing it back to play space. So what we're also doing, and I will, and again, my email address is drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk. If there's a specific area that you feel we still haven't got that right, where the grass is still too high and it should be a play space, please let us know about it. We are bringing forward a play strategy where we're going to be investing both this year and putting a longer term plan around play equipment and our other play areas. So we are listening. The strategy has changed in terms of grass cutting, as we heard earlier on. But if there's areas we're still not getting it right, please do let us know, and we'll look into it. Okay, Susan Lennon, 1252. The toilets in Poole are disgraceful. Broken toilet seat and disabled one. No locks on doors and ladies. Staff for check and clean. What message are we sending to visitors? It's the same for Bournemouth. Okay, Susan, thank you for that. We will. I'll make sure that's looked into. Our toilets are cleaned regularly, so we should be aware of that. And if we're not, and if we haven't done anything about it, that's a problem which I'll personally look into. Got some really positive news, actually, in terms of toilets, specifically about Poole. There was £500,000 put into the budget to bring 6 toilets back, effectively, that had been closed, and that's all bar one has been completed now. The one that hasn't been completed has been refurbished, and while we work out a longer term strategy. So all of those 6 are now in place. I'm really pleased that we've been able to deliver that more toilets into Poole. On top of that, we've got effectively 3 new toilets coming in across Poole in new areas, and they're effectively the toilets that have been used extensively in parts of the continent. In Amsterdam, self-cleaning toilets. So we're bringing them in as a pilot to see how well they work. So we're putting a new one onto Poole Quay. We're putting a new one in the Poole bus station, and I believe we're looking at sites in Ashley Road as well. So on top of it, the 6 that have already gone in and been refurbished. Then we've got 2 of those are in Hamworthy, I remember. We've got 3 new ones going in on top of that. If that works really well, if those 3 new ones are really well received, then we will be having a really ambitious strategy about rolling that out across the conurbation. So huge investment in toilets in Poole. But Susan, I really appreciate your question about some existing ones where the maintenance hasn't been good enough, and then we'll specifically go and make sure somebody is able to check on that for us. So Susan, thank you. Okay. Fine. Okay, so Max Bold, BOWD, what can you do? So 1254, what can you do to improve Poole, as we're getting more visitors here after the pandemic, and would be lovely to see a facelift? Yeah, completely agree, Max. We are across the conurbation getting more visitors. That's been great for the economy. Poole is an absolute gem. We've seen the quay increasingly bustling and busy, which is great. We've got Festival Coast Live, which is our sort of events and entertainment project. We're trying to put across the conurbation to encourage more of that effectively. Poole Park, events at Poole Park, as well through Festival Coast Live. So we're trying to richly overlay some activities, some good stuff happening. There's been fantastic. The food festival was brilliant as well, and I think actually the lower High Street and the Poole Park is actually looking really great. What we want to do now, we talked a little bit earlier around our Cleaner, Greener, Safer pilot, and we've done that across the 3 town centres now. But we started in Poole. And a significant amount of regeneration that Future Places are looking at is in Poole, because it's effectively an area that needs that love, that intervention, and coming forward. So we've got our strategy is called our big plan. Big plan for BCP, and one of the 5 areas in that was Poole rejuvenation and regeneration. So it's a massive focus for us, Max. We are doing a lot, and we're looking through Future Places to work out how we can do more. So, on the quay, there's a number of projects coming forward over the next few months on the quay. Hopefully, we're looking at that whole cafe culture piece, how we could perhaps use our Futures Fund to invest in some street infrastructure and all of that. We've got a plan coming in for it's coming shortly. It was certainly before the end of this year, around the Poole Town Centre North bit, the heart of Poole by the lighthouse cultural quarter. So there's a huge amount of work going in Poole, Max, and hopefully if there's any bits and pieces we're not doing, you're seeing that we need to do more of, please contact us. But thank you for your question, Max. Okay, Patricia Porter, 12:55. Why is there no food waste collection in Poole so long after BCP was formed? Patricia, yeah, thank you for the question. It's a really valid and important one. So just to be clear, so we have food waste collection in other areas. We historically haven't in Poole. The government is coming forward with a sort of waste strategy, effectively, which we believe will have some funding. So to collect food waste in Poole will cost more money, and the government are in the process of putting a paper through, and we're looking to that shortly. So. Ball's in the court of the government. We're in regular dialogue with them. We're expecting that to come, and we expect to have some funding in that. If for whatever reason that paper, lot going on with government at the moment, so for any reason that paper gets pulled, we will look into it more internally about how we can sort it. So, interesting. We have actually had some recycling statistics back, and the impact of not having this is by no means saying we don't want to do it, but it's just encouraging that our recycling rates haven't been overly impacted by the lack of food waste. Apparently, it's been quite positive. The amount of we're still able to recycle and collect, even though we do have food waste in the normal collection. But we're committed to bringing food waste collection in across Poole, and we do know that recycling rates in particular go up when we do that as well. So we're on it, Patricia. Okay. Fine. Let me get to another question. Okay. Okay, fine. Some more detail about the long grass, which we can get to. Alison Bartlett, 12:59. I'm loving seeing the wildflowers and long grass verges in some areas of BCP. Well done. I love the compromise on keeping play areas cut and having a small space in corners to grow. Also, we try to get some more of your great message out to residents on why this is a good thing. Yeah, and actually, it's really I've picked this question because it's worth it. I think we need to just listen to both sides of the argument. There's some really genuine things. A question a minute ago about dogs getting ticks effectively on areas of too long grass. So it is about getting a balance right. We haven't got it yet. I'd like to see more wilding and biodiversity, but we've got to do it at a way that fits with the community. The one really important point, which I touched on in the earlier part of the question session, was around our biodiversity net gain paper. So what this does is hardwire in biodiversity to planning. So as people are coming forward with planning applications, they need to take into account the biodiversity. So we are literally the first in the country to do that. So we're trying to get the balance right. You know, Alison, you'd have seen from some of the other questions and comments the challenge around it. Really appreciate you bringing the other case forward. We didn't get it quite right last year. We think we've got it a bit better this year, but let's adapt it. Let's keep getting feedback. What's really important now is specific areas where it's not working in specific areas. We'll go back and have a look at it because we think we've got a more balanced view now generally. But so if it's not working where you are, if there's grass that's being cut but you don't think it needs to be, let us know. And if there's grass that isn't being cut that needs to be cut, please let us know. And I'll close today with my email address again in a minute, in about 5 minutes time. So any questions directly to me. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Question in Mark Lawrence. Delighted with bike lanes, but when will it be investment in public transport to free us up from the fifth worst congestion slot and pollution? Yeah. You know, this is a really complicated problem. We're putting in, alongside the government, £100 million into that whole active travel work, so we are enabling more people to walk and cycle. That, you know, that does help as well in terms of some public transport, because with bus prioritisation and bus lanes effectively in, so there is you know, significant work going on there. I think your question's more specifically about investing in the bus services and bus companies. We are, you know, interested in, you know, trying to work for a metro system. We've got a number of sort of localized train lines. We've got two bus companies. Big issue, a lot less people using public transport than they were. So bus companies, train companies, as we've seen with the strikes, are struggling financially. So I'd encourage people, if they can, to use them more. We've got I can't announce the details of it today, but I know it's been worked on, a really innovative scheme we're trying to look at with one of the bus companies, where we can see how important the price of a ticket is, and whether we could potentially support some key routes to prove if the prices were cheaper, more people would use them. So we're trying to be really proactive on it, Ian. It's that big infrastructure piece which we are doing. Now we're trying to work out how we can support them. It really, you know, there's an element we can do here locally, and we will do. We work in partnership with the bus companies. There's a bigger bit here as well around national support. Because this is such a big problem in terms of trains and bus companies, that it will not just be solved by us locally, but we are trying to be really innovative in it, Ian. So thank you for your question. Okay, right, let's get some more. I'm going to jump down a few questions, because I've primarily answered the questions right at the beginning. Okay, so Stu Smith, I see you have the community safety officers, CSAS officers in Bournemouth and Paul, and they do an amazing job. Sorry, it's 1:01 p.m. From Stu. They do an amazing job. There was a rumour that they were coming to Christchurch. Why haven't we got them here yet? Are they still coming to us? Stu, I think you'd have heard Kelly Ansell earlier on talk about the investment we put into CSAS. So we've got, I think it's 15 now, because we've invested over the last couple of years. We've just put in £600,000 of more investment. So we're in a process of recruitment of those officers now, and then we will be deploying them more across the conurbation. So yes, it is our intention to have them in Christchurch. We've heard me say a couple of times today, we've got an issue with recruitment. This is a fantastic opportunity to do something really meaningful for your communities. And, you know, Stu, you're absolutely right. They've been so well received, and that's why we keep investing in them. And the police are really pleased as well, because if we're able to put some resource into something, they're helping us more as well. So it's a win-win. We need more people who want to do it. So if anybody would like to listen or come in to speak to us about a potential career as a community safety CSAS officer, we'd love to hear from them. So Stu, we've got more money put in. We are recruiting. It's quite a long process to recruit, but we haven't recruited enough yet. So we need to find more people to do it. But yes, the ambition in working with the bid, a new Christchurch bid, which is brilliant, by the way, is that we will get them more widely spread across the conurbation. Okay. Yeah, fine. Yeah, lots again on cleaner, greener, safer. Vacant high street shops. Okay, so I've got a question from Richard Perry, 106. Regarding vacant high street shops, central government changes provided new powers to local councils. Latest article was a post about backing forced auction of vacant shops. Will the council consider working with third parties to support pop-up shops and short-term lets? Yes, right, okay. Yeah, Richard, absolutely. It's simple. I think we've seen in Kingland, in Poole, how well that's really worked, not just as a startup for some of the businesses that have been able to use free rent for 2 years in those facilities, but how good it's been for the community. It's created a real hub. We've got a guy called Nigel Brooks, Councillor Nigel Brooks, who's leading on high street regeneration. High street regeneration. Yeah, we're looking at ways we can actually take more active roles in there, and how we can even broker and facilitate that. So we, our Future Places team, are also working on this. And we don't believe in the death of the high street. We think that the high street's changing. It's more experiential. People go for different types of shops, and then retail's changing. But we've actually got some great footfall numbers in some of our high streets, and Poole's actually doing really quite well on a retail frontage as well. So what we don't really want to see is these shops effectively immediately going to residential, when actually you need those active frontages to put life into town centres. So Richard, yes, we are actively looking at some of the things you're talking about. Phil's right in terms of regeneration. We've got to look where we can to deploy some more housing, but he leads the Future Places work for us, and they are absolutely adamant that we need to keep shop frontages and active frontages. So there might be a slight miscommunication there. Right, okay, I've gone slightly over time, so I do apologise. I'm going to try and find something to close on. I don't want to keep answering the same people's questions, so let me find something else. Okay, I've got a question on enforced for use of bike along the prom during the summer, 114, from Alison Bartlett. I'm a bike rider, but there are people that ignore the ban every year and cycle too fast, and it's very dangerous. Need to be better managed before a serious incident. Yeah, I agree. Alison, I think I've said about 5 times now. My children, I've got a beach hut, and the one thing we worry about is effectively that the speeding cyclists across the prom in the summer months when it's busy. So I would really encourage everybody, please don't use the site of a prom to cycle in July and August. There are other routes. We do effectively restrict and ban cycling in between 10 and 6, I believe it is, on the summer. So please don't use the prom to cycle in the summer. We do get all of our seafront operatives to try and intervene. It's really tricky because we've actually asked to. I had a session where we were looking at what else we could put in. Could we put in gates, etc., more management down there? And then it's difficult because of the accesses that everybody else needs across the prom. So we are looking at ways we could sort of strengthen the enforcement there. Ultimately, at the moment, it's down to our staff to do it, and they do it, and we want them to do it, and we're encouraging them to do it. So, but it's difficult. So partly it's messaging. If we could get the message out more often, that it is not, allowed to cycle on the prom between 10 and 6 in the July and August months. That'd be great. And any ideas people have got about how we can enforce that better, we'd love to hear on them. Okay, guys, loads of questions we haven't answered. We'll get back to them today, both in the Cleaner, Green and Safer session. Sorry, not today. Over the next couple of days. And in this section, we're going to start doing these will be regular now, these sessions. So hopefully some of the we'll get through some backlog, and then we'll go forward these deep dive sessions at the beginning, and then the half an hour at the back end as well, to do these sessions. So any feedback's really welcome. If there are any particular parts that people would like us to do more of a deep dive on, again, really keen to hear that again now as well. My email address, if the guys could just put up again, that's great. That's drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk. So anything about this session, really keen on recruitment. If anybody has ideas around people who might be interested in working with us. Massive thank you to all the questions. Massive thank you to the team who supported the earlier session as well. Really great to be back. Looking forward to doing it again in the next session. So please look out for it, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks all. Cheers.